Believe it or not, folks, tomorrow marks a year to the day that the Starfield rant went viral worldwide, and we'll be doing a video about Starfield 1 year on tomorrow to mark that occasion. However, it does seem rather apt that I mention it beforehand, because today we're going to discuss the attempted cancellation of Nerdrotic, Geeks and Gamers, and Ryan Kinnell, and its hilarious backfire. And what is their crime? Their crime is pointing and laughing at garbage television, aka having a go at the sacred cow ideological shows which aren't made for entertainment purposes but purely to virtue signal. Hi everyone, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface. What a strange video to make. We're going to discuss the attempted cancellation of Geeks and Gamers, Nerdrotic and Ryan Kinnell, as they discussed a show that was cancelled quicker than it takes Amanda Stenberg to create a diss track to have a go at her audience that should be watching the show that got cancelled that cost $180 million.
I'ma tell you something. They spin and woke, bastardize it, appreciate it.
It says appropriate it, not appreciate it.
Appreciate it, appropriated, whatever. Speak truth to power. Keep an eye out. Not fodder for your clickbait. Speaking of which, journalists, did you forget it's your job to provide the truth?
You forgot your bling.
You so bored, don't fuck with your discourse.
Okay, there's a lot of cursed imagery in there, but I'm not going to take any of it back, okay? Yes, the cancellation of The Acolyte. It was a glorious thing, and also the most obvious thing that was ever going to happen. The show was complete garbage. It had nothing to do with toxic dude bros. Those toxic dude bros that are always hanging out in fandom, that have been hanging out at conventions for decades upon decades, that were beating up the jocks at high school. Yeah, Luke Skywalker is better than Han Solo. You know, those toxic dude bro. No, spaces like fandom have always existed for the little bit nerdy, the little bit geeky. People are interested in science fiction, engineering, things like that. And it's only recently been invaded by pretenders, by tourists that know nothing about the franchises that they're getting themselves into and want to pervert it, not subvert it, pervert it, and use it as a platform to push their ideology in the guise of inclusion and diversity and all these buzzwords that they use, when in reality it actually means exclusion and intolerance and things like that. And they've usurped a wonderful franchise in an effort to do this, then act surprised when said content is thoroughly rejected, because new content tends to be antithetical to what made that fandom great and beloved for decades upon decades. Which brings us to an organization called Rewriting Ripley. That name might jog a memory or two for some people, because this group have been going after Nerdrotic, Geeks and Gamers, Critical Drinker, myself, Ryan Kinnell, many others, in an effort to demonetize them and potentially have them removed from YouTube. Why? Because we dare speak up and out against this ideological crap, this anti-entertainment which spits in the face of what made these franchises great in the first place. And they have been trying this nonsense for years, since 2021, and it's failed miserably every time. But there's also another big thing about Rewriting Ripley that you should also know, and that is when these attacks started, Pablo Hidalgo of Lucasfilm, of Star Wars itself, started following the Rewriting Ripley podcasts, as if maybe they had something to do with this hit piece article's production, that maybe Rewriting Ripley were actually supported and potentially sponsored by Lucasfilm, Star Wars, Disney, the whole job lot, in an effort to silence critics of their absolute dog shit. Or it just happened to be one hell of a coincidence, eh? Well, that Rewriting Ripley just so happens to be back on a diet of antidepressants and cat litter. They're attempting to do the very same thing they did back in March 2021, and guess what? They got the same fucking result. Utter failure. So here they go, attempting to create a hit piece on Geeks and Gamers, Ryan Kinnell, and Nerdrotic.
An alarming number of users are exploiting their platforms to spread hate.
Ho. I already liked them. You don't have to sell me on this, okay? Hi everybody, my name's Terrence Von Higginbottom. I play the character of Az on the channel HeelvsBabyface. What you just saw there was something that we like to call in the industry a joke. A joke is used in many different situations and circumstances to diffuse what could be potentially inflammatory situations. In this instance, my character of Az used a joke to defuse a clearly hysterical woman on her period who was in collusion with corporation in an effort to silence voices that were critical of franchises which they've loved for decades upon decades, now that the corporation has taken them over and attempting to push their messages which actually involve hatred, bigotry, and other horrible, nasty things like that, but is fully supported by both government and mainstream media. I in no way, shape, or form condone any sort of hate whatsoever, unless, of course, it's directed at people like that.
I don't say anything I don't believe, but of course I do say things in a way that is going to elicit a response from people.
Holy cow, it's Milo in Inopolopolis. I love his pop culture commentary, particularly his reviews on The Acolyte and Kenobi, although I must confess I do get a little bit uncomfortable at the humongous amount of anti-Semitism. Now, we all know what they're attempting to do here. They're trying to juxtapose Milo next to Geeks and Gamers, Ryan, and Nerdrotic in an attempt to create guilt by association, apart from the fact that those channels have in no way, shape, or form any association whatsoever with Milo. It's a pathetic, manipulative tactic that failed miserably, but judging by the other two hit pieces they attempted throughout the years, they're not exactly sending their finest here, if you know what I mean.
A rampage of vitriol that we have faced since the show was even announced, when it was still just a concept and no one had even seen it.
That's because your show was a mitigated dog shit. And even when it was announced, Amanda, it wasn't announced as some great Star Wars project for people to get excited about. We heard terms like, it's going to be female-centric, like that fucking means anything. It's going to be from a feminist perspective. It's going to be a matriarchy. It's going to be about Leslie Headland's gay experience. What the fuck has any of that got to do with Star Wars apart from nothing? It's once more the corporation using the franchise as a platform to push whatever bollocks it thinks it wants to push, which it has every right to do. What it doesn't have the right is for people to like it. And when it's written like a school child with crayons that's 5 years old and got learning disabilities, got themselves a bit of paper and started to scroll on it, I don't think there's going to be much hope for your show, because if it didn't have any kind of support and backing behind it, where were the viewing figures? They didn't exist because nobody, from whatever side you want to pretend that you're on, left, right, up, down, or fucking adjacent, nobody watched this crap, Amandla. And if you want to play the representation card, then there is gay representation right on the screen now.
Actress Amanda Stenberg playing the victim card.
They can do nothing other than play the victim.
Amanda Stenberg, the adult pretender.
Pathological, sociopathic, feminist liars.
First and foremost, they're right. Jeremy's right. They do play the victim. Ryan is right. They do play the victim. And then, of course, once again, they've got to juxtapose with Milo because they want to create the association. The association which does not in any capacity exist. You're pathetic, and that's why you lose. Because because Ryan and Gary and Jeremy have one thing that you will never have: authenticity. Channels like Rewriting Ripley and other channels that are joining in on this attempt of a cancellation would sell their soul and the franchise out purely for a crumb of access. They have their heads so far up these corporations' asses they could brush their bloody teeth together. Also, what? You get a retweet from the official Star Wars Twitter account? How pathetic that you get an interview with Leslie Headland, the former personal assistant to Harvey Weinstein. Nice morals you've got there. You don't care about the franchise because the franchises have always been accepting for all walks of life. So you get the idea about the video, but let's go into the nuts and bolts of it. Dear Team YouTube, last week Amanda Listenberg brackets she, they, fucking pronouns. What time is it? Based o'clock posted candid comments to Instagram about the rampage of bigotry and vitriol that she has received since leading the cast of The Acolyte. As fans of the Star Wars franchise, we have tirelessly witnessed a handful of YouTube creators continuously drive prolonged insults and harassment against marginalized actors and members of our community. Holy shit, you're sounding like one of the wardens in The Prisoner here, for God's sake.
Guilty! Read the charge! The prisoner has been charged with the most serious breach of social etiquette, total defiance of the elementary laws which sustain our community, questioning the decisions of those we voted to govern us, unhealthy aspects of speech, and the refusal to observe, wear, or respond to his number.
Enough is enough. The Star Wars fandom demands that YouTube enforce its community guidelines against prolonged insults and incitement of targeted harassment towards women of color by demonetizing YouTube channels. Geeks und Gamers, Ryan Kill und Nerdrotic. Shut up, you Gestapo-sounding weirdo. We, the Star Wars community, demand. Who the hell made you the Star Wars community? Nobody. Sit down, shut up, get back in your box, you stupid little cow. That kind of sounds like the language of somebody like, oh, I don't know, Pablo Hidalgo from Lucasfilm. As if you've been emboldened to use such terminologies because you've been stroked and groomed. You're the voice of the Star Wars community. You speak for us here. Or something along that nature. I'm just speculating, of course. The hate campaign against Amanda has been so profitable that other major YouTubers have noticed the attacks on Amanda, including Star Wars Theory with 3.3 million subscribers. Wait, that's the same Star Wars Theory that Pablo Hidalgo insulted and ended up having to call and apologize to, most likely because Star Wars Theory knows more about Star Wars than Pablo Hidalgo could ever hope to. So it's not as if he's got a grudge against Star Wars Theory or anything, is it now? I don't know. All these things are just so coincidental. How many more good faith content creators will turn to profitable hate campaigns if this behavior is permitted to continue with no repercussions? The only campaign that I see here is you and your cronies attempting to cancel a bunch of people because they have shock horror different opinions than you. You're so fragile and you live in such a vacuous world where your ideology has overtaken what is actually entertainment that you can't hear something that goes against the narrative that you've been force-fed. You come across as incredibly insecure insecure, and one reason may be because you know what Geeks and Gamers, Nerdrotic, Ryan Kinnell, and Star Wars Theory are saying, as well as many others, is actually right, and the Acolyte and the other Star Wars projects are a big pile of fucking shite. So you do what all good cowards do. You hide behind the shield of inclusivity and diversity in an effort to attack. You are utterly pathetic. But regardless of how I feel, to YouTube it went, and YouTube did answer. At Rewriting Ripley, we definitely want our community to help flag inappropriate content to ensure YouTube is a safe place for everyone. If you come across something that violates YouTube's policies, you can report it by following these steps. Thank you. A generic response, but a response nonetheless. Rewriting Ripley replies with, thank you. Relevant videos and channels have been reported like the good Stasi that we are. We hope you make the right decision so Daddy Corporation can pat us on the arse and say, what a good little useless idiot you've been for us. I may have editorialized a wee bit there. We appreciate you taking the time to help keep our community safe, and we'll do our best to take action quickly and fairly. So now the race was on, the race to try and find as much incriminating information as they possibly can, as they did their overlords' bidding like the good little mindless drones that they are. Thanks for reaching out. We just heard back and confirmed that this content is not violative and will remain up. We totally understand you may not agree with this decision, but we reviewed this video very carefully against our policies. Oh no! Oh dear! I guess some people are allowed to have their own opinions, even if it hurts your poor antidepressant adult fifis. But wait! A white knight is charging in with his lance in effort to defend Rewriting Ripley, bringing forth the evidence. This is an actual Nerdrotic thumbnail, by the way, says the good little snitch. However, it seems to be quickly followed by, I got a lot of Mexicans that are telling me they don't care or they find it funny. Interesting. Holy shit, people have a sense of humor. Stop the press! And another cancellation attempt against people like Gary, Jeremy, Ryan. Star Wars Theory fails miserably because people are in the real world allowed to have shock horror, different opinions. Just because you may not agree with them, may not like them, may have to cope with them, doesn't change the fact that they can exist. And once more, Rewriting Ripley show everybody that Star Wars, Lucasfilm, Disney are petrified of these content creators, and you take the most fire when you're above the target. I'll see you in the next video. You take care. Bye for now.